The Surma people live in southwest Ethiopia, but they are not Ethiopian. 50,000 of them live in a world apart, a week's walk from the nearest road. It's a relatively fertile place, far removed from the drought and famine that characterize the rest of Ethiopia to the world. Their relative plenty enables the Surma to concentrate on other things than survival. This is Kolaholi, a musician, an artist at body painting, and a man of peace. He is going to meet his close friend, Chinoi, a champion at the violent national sport of the Surma, stick fighting. The two men keep their cattle in a cattle camp about 100 yards from the village. Chinoi is already there in the chill of the mountain dawn. They need to defend their cattle against raiders from neighboring tribes, especially the Bumi, who live to the south. The young guardians of the cattle are the nephews and cousins of both men. Kolaholi owns about 50 cows. He's well respected in the tribe. He has 2 wives and 5 children. The Surma are experts at cattle rearing, with a long tradition of animal husbandry. Chinoi, the stick fighter, is scarred from his many fights. He has won over 60 of them and has never been beaten. The fights are called dongas, and they can be occasions of great ferocity. The boys have had their bodies painted recently, but by a lesser artist than Kolaholi. Chinoi sees men gathering for a donga. Someone from a nearby village has insulted a man from Chinoi's village, and the matter is to be settled by a fight. Though teams will be chosen for the formal fight, many of the men use dongas as an excuse to settle old scores. Chinoi arrives trembling with excitement. He is prepared for the fight. He has brought his finger shield. Kolaholi is not a stick fighter. He tries to cool tempers. Doleti, their chief, arrives. He is concerned that they should not fight and tries to gather them to listen to him. You should not fight amongst yourselves, he says. It is the wrong time. You should cultivate your crops. It is not the right time for fighting. You have a common enemy, the Bumi. Do not fight amongst yourselves. Doleti is a man of great authority among the Surma. His speech convinces the men that this is no time to settle the dispute. They disperse back to their villages. But the sense of grievance will smolder on until the next donga. The Surma used to live in the mountains further south. They moved to these low hills about 10 years ago, when the Bhumi drove them out of their old home. Kalaholi returns to his village. He finds the women working at pottery. The women wear lip plates from the time of marriage. Once they were carved from wood, but now most of them are made of clay. The lip plates are baked in the same open fires as the hand-molded pots. Kalaholi's village contains 3 families. There are about 40 people in all, including the 8 in Kalaholi's immediate family. His first wife, Natunia, is barren. She is starting to make borde, a beer they brew from sorghum. The second wife, Bamboo, has all the children. The next step in making borde is to filter it through a perforated gourd. By now, the smell has drifted round the village. Kalaholi pours a share for Chinoy and their friend Muradi. The borde is highly alcoholic, but drinking is not restricted to the men. Bamboo will have her share later. Kalaholi and Chinoy share a bowl. Some of the women get drunk and start to dance. Bamboo has a problem. While she was drunk, she had a terrible row with Oligalenia, Kalaholi's brother-in-law. He threw her on the ground, knowing that she's pregnant. She is unhurt, but that's not the point. Her pride is injured. Friends try to restrain her, while Olegolenia's father ticks off his son for drunkenness. The quarrel is about who had the money for some thatching grass both of them collected. Koloholi says it could be settled quite reasonably, but the Bode is speaking louder than reason. The row is complicated by the family link. Olegolenia threatens to send Koloholi's sister back and reclaim the cattle that he paid as bride price. Bamboo appeals to Koloholi for support. He says he doesn't care if Olegolenia takes the cattle for the sake of peace and quiet. This does not calm Olegolenia. Koloholi says that the men should sort it out. He also suggests that Bamboo should leave. She's not helping matters. Olegolenia's father again ticks off his son. He tells him to listen to what the elders have to say, or at least to wait until the morning, when they'll all be sober again. Finally, Bamboo walks away from it all, abandoning the stones she had gathered as weapons. A sudden shower of rain brings the quarrel to an end. In southern Ethiopia, the wooded hills are clothed in good soil, and when the first rains come, the Surma will soon begin cultivating the land. After the rains, Chinoi and Koloholi go panning for gold with Muradi. They have walked for a week to get here. It is a dangerous journey to the very edge of their land. The danger comes not only from the bumi, but from the risk of malaria. They need the gold to buy guns to fight the bumi, and also to buy cattle, because of an increase in bride price. The price of a wife is now usually a gun and 25 cattle. Back at the village, news has come that there is to be a wedding. Everyone gets ready. For a special occasion like this, everyone wants their bodies painted. Koloholi is the best body painter. Chinoy looks on. He's a fighter, not a painter. Some body painters use the clay directly on the skin, but Koloholly's distinctive style comes from removing a film of clay with his fingertips. Koloholly is popular with the girls too. Here he uses a more traditional style, painting the clay on with a stick. Before the wedding, the children dance. Koloholly oversees them. The small children do the frog dance. The snake dance is for the older children. Men trim each other's hair for the wedding. Even Chinoy has his done. The wedding starts with a dance. This is Chief Doletti's village, and one of his granddaughters is the bride. The bride is brought out veiled and with a new lip plate. Her friends sweep a path for her into the village. Chief Deletti appears, and his henchmen, drunk on boarding, start firing their rifles, often narrowly missing the crowd. The bride and groom have retreated to their house. She plies her new husband with borde before consummating the marriage. As part of the celebrations, they killed a goat. The offal is hanging on a tree for the vultures. The stomach has a more important use, to predict the future. Kolaholi sits next to Sabanya, the village chief, to interpret the map of the future. They see war with the Bumi and cattle raids. Sabanya sees a death not far off. Further off, they see famine. The omens are not good. The future of the tribe is threatened. Zabanya, who foresaw a death after the wedding, has just heard that his mother has died. The chief mourner is the dead woman's daughter. Zabanya rings a cow's bell while the son-in-law pours milk on the ground at the site chosen for the grave. The grave site in the middle of the village is marked out. Zabanya puts on a legging from his stick-fighting costume as a mark of respect, while the sons-in-law remove the clod of earth in one piece so that it can be replaced after the burial. Olikoro is the local town crier. He tells the story of the old woman's life and sings her funeral song. Who is going to look after us now, as you did in your lifetime? If you were alive now, you would see all these people weeping for you. Her death is lovely. She died according to her age. Get rest, mother of us all. The women prepare to bring the dead old lady out of her hut. Wealth, happiness, everything good happened in your lifetime. Now rest peacefully. We will follow in the future. Your funeral ceremony is attended by multitudes. Your grave is ready. Her lip plate and jewelry are put into the grave with her. Already, the first dancers are arriving from nearby villages. Finally, the original sod of earth is put back to leave the grave unmarked in the middle of the village. Her son-in-law treads it in, with his thumbs in his ears to keep out evil spirits. A horn and a gunshot summon the villagers, who drive their cattle over the grave as a mark of respect. Soon, there will be no sign of the burial place. Holly has heard rumors of a Bumi raid. Muradi brings in the boys to look after the cattle. Holly puts dung on the fire to keep away the flies. They prepare for a long night. He checks his cattle for ticks or leeches from the stream where he waters them. Raids from the Bumi have become commonplace since they got automatic weapons from the Sudan. but they cannot be allowed to interfere with the normal routine of village life. At every full moon, the women of the village dance. Back in the cattle camp, they hear distant gunfire. It sounds as if the Bumi are raiding. There is nothing the Surma can do but wait for morning. They sing round their campfire until the danger passes. Next morning, all is quiet and peaceful again. Holly goes out with his cattle. Chinoy and his family cultivate their sorghum crop in preparation for the coming rains. Then, suddenly, there is an unusual sight. An administrator from the Ethiopian government arrives on one of his rare visits with a band of soldiers to back him up. It turns out that the shots they heard last night were not a Bumi raid. Instead, a distant group of Surma had raided the Dizi, the people on their northern borders. They killed one man and stole guns and cattle. The administrator and his group have come to get them back. Holly comes to greet them. He is not a chief, but he is a man of authority. He suggests that they all gather under the fig tree in Zabania's village. The administrator, speaking through an interpreter, starts with news of the road that will come and tells them they must help the men who come to build it. They need to cooperate with the government. Their Ethiopian brothers do not want them to live in poverty and nakedness. True, we were all born naked, but people from the city will be surprised and concerned to think that people still live naked. Our government considers that this should change. You should not allow your children to suffer by having their lips pierced and clay plates put in them. Don't forget, the dizzy people are your friends. You must not fight them. The government has given you guns to fight the bumi. You need to defend yourselves against them. But if you use the guns against the dizzy, the government will take them away from you. Chief Deleti offers to try to get the guns and cattle back. He knows who stole them, but he needs time. The administrator advises the Surma not to fight against the government. It will get them nowhere. As the officials are leaving, one Surma decides that he wants to give back his government gun. I just want to be a farmer and live peacefully. I was given 2 guns by the government. I don't want them anymore. Please take them back. The administrator refused to take back the guns. Chief Deleti bids him farewell and promises to get back the stolen guns and cattle. He just needs more time. The administrator heads back to Dizzy country and home. He never did get his guns and cattle back. There has been another argument between villages. This time, there will be no going back. The picked fighters are wrapped in yards of cloth to protect them. Chinoy arrives. He is not personally involved, but he has come to watch. This donga arose over a dispute about a girl. Her friends come too. The supporters arrive from the village of one team. There are only a few selected fighters, but all the men come armed with their fighting sticks. When the other side arrives, it's difficult to keep them apart. Stewards try to keep the crowds from attacking each other and clear a ring. Chinoi helps to push the crowds back. Personal feuds often flare up at these events. The chosen contestants prepare to fight. There are no rules, except that you must not kill your opponent. The donga ends when only one of the fighters is left standing. The winner is feted by all and presented with a goat skin from his chosen girl. She is shy and stays in the background. It looks like rain, so the people decide to slash the trees and burn the grass to prepare the ground for planting sorghum. The administrator who came to see them told them that they ought to wear clothes, but he never told them not to cut down the trees. The erosion that has caused such disaster in the north of Ethiopia may soon be here. If it comes, the Surma's own predictions of their hungry future will soon come true. For Kolaholi and Chinoi, their cattle and the present are their life. Kolaholi sings to his cows.
$35,000 of them in the whole of Asia. That's all that's left. Their numbers are decreasing every day. They're vanishing despite the fact they're revered in religious life. The Hindu god Ganesh even has the head of an elephant. Desperate last-minute measures are being taken to preserve what's left. In Sri Lanka, a whole herd of elephants has been darted and moved to safety. We'll take part in that hazardous operation. Not long ago, thousands of Asian elephants were tamed for logging work in the forests. Now there are so few elephants left in the wild in India that the government has banned further catching. Survival cameras rode with the catchers to record the very last roundup of all, a phrase that sums up the plight of the Asian elephant. Although it's the animal most people are familiar with from circuses, the Asian elephant is very seldom filmed in the wild. Wildlife films and television usually feature the African elephant, like this one, a slightly bigger animal with far bigger ears and more likely to carry big ivory. The Asian elephant has a much more domed forehead. The ears are comparatively insignificant. Head-on, there's no mistaking the bulk of the African species. There's a small difference in the trunk, too. The African has 2 prehensile lips at the tip. The Asian, only 1. With the Asian elephant, Elephas maximus, only the bulls carry tusks. It's very rare to find a big tusker, probably because big ivory was shot out long ago. Asian elephants have been captured and trained for hunting, ceremonial and work for at least 3,000 years. Indian rulers, especially the Mughal emperors, put them into their battle line. So did more recent military commanders. Elephants were used as recently as World War II in the Burma campaign to carry ammunition. Within modern times, elephants in India were still numerous enough occasionally to derail a train. Some Maharajas had over 1,000 elephants at their disposal, a number of which were trained to take part in fighting displays. This archive film was shot as recently as 1934 in Jaipur state. Rather like some disappointed boxer, the loser doesn't take defeat in the ring too kindly. On ceremonial occasions, an Indian princeling could rely on an impressive turnout of elephants. There were plenty more in the wild where those came from. The Maharaja of Patiala's eldest son certainly wasn't short of elephants at his wedding in 1936. His crown is all diamonds. As to the wedding coach, what else would it be drawn by but elephants? What these scenes reflect is how large the wild population must have been to provide as many elephants as even a Maharaja could wish for. But the picture has sadly changed. 100 years ago, the Asian elephant's range was far, far larger. It was found right across the east, from Iraq to China. Today, these are the isolated pockets in which the Asian elephant lingers on. A world total optimistically put at 35,000. One of the more populated pockets is in the Indian state of Assam, close to the Burmese border. And that's where the last authorized roundup of wild elephants took place. There may be as many as 4,000 left in this region. The question is often asked, why is it always the Asian elephant that is taken out of the wild and put to work for man? Why not the African? Certainly, the two species seem to behave in much the same way in the wild state. There's no real evidence to support the idea that the Asian elephant is more docile and more easily tamed. Until recently, there was a successful African elephant training center in Zaire. So perhaps it's just a question of opportunity. In Asia, there are forests in which the elephant has proved an ideal working aid. Religious and ceremonial life is more formal and developed than in Africa, and the elephant makes an ideally impressive addition to a state or religious occasion. Nevertheless, the impression lingers on that the Asian elephant is more easily tamed. Joining the last roundup in Assam will show just how easily. One of the tribes that specializes in catching wild elephants is called the Singpo. Their ancestors have been capturing elephants by the same traditional methods for several thousand years. There are two basic techniques: the kedda, in which elephants are driven across country into a stockade, and the mela shikar, when the herd is pursued on elephant back, the calves separated and roped. Both are dangerous. Before the catch can take place, it's necessary to build a camp in the jungle. The kunkis, or tame elephants who will be used in the catching, do all the lifting and carrying. Their calves go everywhere with them. At a command, a kunki will break a small tree in half. The trade of elephant catching is handed down from father to son. Now it will probably die out. The striped jacket is the proud uniform of a Singpo elephant catcher. At dawn, the catching elephants are loaded up with the gear. All the ropes are hand-woven by the team. Reconnaissance over the past few days has shown that there's a wild herd with calves very close by. An extraordinary feature of the mela is the way the wild elephants appear to be lulled into false security by the presence of the tame ones, even when they're being chased by them. Right in close to the herd now, the catchers throw a lasso, but miss. The chase takes the catchers out of the open country of elephant grass and back into the forest. And there, at last, they separate the calf. Securely roped, the calf is led back to the training camp. Using the mela method, only young elephants can be captured. It would be virtually impossible to rope a fully grown beast weighing 6 tons. The kedda method is something different. This is the kedda itself, or stockade. It looks too flimsy to hold a herd of angry captives, but the springiness of the walls is backed up by solid timber supports. The principle is that it gives but doesn't break. The drive towards the kedda starts in late afternoon. The thunder flashes and beaters are driving the herd towards the long open wings of the stockade. By the time the herd is close to the opening of the keddah, it will be too late to turn back. The noise behind persuades them to keep going on, and now dusk is falling so that the funneling walls of the stockade will be concealed. By the time the moon is up, there are a dozen furious elephants inside the keddah. Fire is a vital element in keeping them there. Without a ring of intimidating fires immediately outside the stockade, the captured herd might easily succeed in smashing its way out. Next morning, the catching team is exhausted. Not so the elephants. They're as fresh as ever. The herd is in a dangerous mood and unlikely to calm down. Nevertheless, the head of the catching team tells his men to mount up. The next step in the keddah is actually to ride in among the captured herd. It's an awesome moment. The first objective must always be to rope the calves. In the confusion and stampede, there's a danger that they may be crushed. Quite unbelievably, the wild elephants accept the tame intruders and make no attempt to attack the riders. There's a bit of pushing and shoving, but no real violence. It would be easy to grasp one of the men with an upstretched trunk, but the thought never seems to occur. A cow is pushed out of the way so that a rope can be got onto her calf. In half an hour, without a casualty to man or elephant, it's all over. The keddah is complete. Now the training can begin. It's 8 miles to the Singpo's training camp. Tethered like a chain gang between the kunkees, the captives go quietly. It's almost as if they'd never been wild elephants. On their way, they pass the handiwork of their real enemy in life, the tree feller. It is the destruction of forests all over the Far East, more than any other single factor, that has depleted the numbers of Asian elephants. That and the continual growth and spread of the human population. These things, rather than hunting or capture, have put the Asian elephant on the endangered list. The kunkees maneuver a captive into position. They're acting rather like jailers. For the first 2 days, the prisoners will have to be tied down. If the initial stages of training aren't exactly kind, they aren't too cruel either. At the very least, the Singpos aren't going to mark their captives with rope burns, if only because they're worth about 10,000 rupees each. That's about 700 pounds. The elephants have to be persuaded to accept man, and there's no way they're going to do that if they're running around loose. Conservationists see nothing against the use of elephants for work in forestry. They may be influenced by the fact that if there are going to be any working elephants in the future, there's got to be a healthy wild stock to supply them. Asian elephants don't readily breed in captivity. In fairness to the Singpos, they show a high regard for both the tame and wild elephants. Those are the buyers deciding how much they're prepared to bid. They'll be able to take their elephants away, partly trained, within a fortnight. At last, all the captives are tied down for their 2 sad but essential days of solitary confinement. Soon after comes another crucial stage in the training process. It takes place at night and might be called ordeal by fire, since fire subdues the elephants. It might also be called ordeal by song, though the singing is said to have a soothing effect. Under these dual influences, the elephants get used to being touched and even tapped with a stick. After that, they can be taken out in daylight on the parade ground to learn the basic commands their mahouts will give them. Halt. Reverse. The kunkis on either side act as guides. Forward. Turn right. The mahout reinforces the command each time with leg pressure, just as if riding a horse. And here, 6 months after capture, is a working elephant. These logs weigh at least 2 tons. It's hard to say whether or not Asian elephants enjoy working. It probably depends on the mahout, and most mahouts, though sadly not all, value their elephants too highly to ill-treat them. What is certain is that there is a place for working elephants, especially in mountainous regions and over difficult terrain where machinery can't easily operate. Elephants are highly efficient. They feed on the vegetation knocked over during logging. Just occasionally, they get a chance to show a machine who's boss. So much for trained elephants. But what of the problems facing the Asian elephant in the wild? To experience those, we must journey south to Sri Lanka. Wherever it still exists, the Asian elephant is in direct conflict with the growing human population. Its forest home is being destroyed. Confined in smaller and smaller areas, the elephant has no choice but to invade places now cultivated by man. Here, forest is being cleared by the quickest possible method. These scenes could have been filmed almost anywhere in Asia. After the fire has gone out, bare, desolate earth remains that may produce crops for a few years. The need to feed Asia's enormous population is, of course, the driving force. But all too often, the destruction of forest is unplanned. As a result, erosion sets in. Dams intended to irrigate the newly cleared land silt up within a few years. Even the climate can be changed by wholesale destruction of forest. The elephants are among the incidental victims. They not only require a great deal of food, around 600 pounds per day, but they need a very large habitat. In the dry season, for instance, the leaves wither and fall in a deciduous forest like this. So the elephants move, or rather used to move, to an evergreen forest or an area of grassland. Now the opportunity no longer exists. One of the real hopes for the Asian elephant lies at the southernmost tip of the Indian subcontinent on the island of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has population problems like anywhere else, but is trying to find a way to solve them. There are between 3,000 and 4,000 elephants in an island only 270 miles long by 130 miles wide. 100 years ago, there were 12,000 elephants here. That was before the British planters started shooting for sport and to protect tea and coffee estates in the hills. As a result, elephants only survived in the less fertile, dry lowlands. Lately, however, these areas have been increasingly developed for agriculture, with the result that Sri Lanka has a number of what are called pocketed herds. Here at Duduru Oya, a once 150-strong herd of elephants has been reduced to 17, isolated amid plantations. They lie up in cover during the day and come out raiding the coconut palms at night. Sometimes, if they feel like a meal of palm fronds, the elephants don't even wait for darkness. The depredations of pocketed herds like the one at Duduru Oya required urgent action. A team that would have to depend on the bushcraft and coolness of the Sri Lankan rangers was set up to tackle the problem. No one had ever successfully moved a fully grown elephant herd before. Where pocketed herds exist in Africa, it has been necessary to shoot all the adults, and only the calves have been saved. But in Sri Lanka, the wildlife authorities had one of the world's most experienced capture experts, Dr. Ian Hofmeyer, veterinary officer of the Etosha National Park, Namibia, who gave his services voluntarily. Darting in dense scrub jungle was more hazardous than anything Hofmeyer had encountered in Africa. Visibility was seldom more than 10 yards. He was using a new Belgian drug called carfentanil. The first elephant was peacefully asleep within minutes of the dart striking. The white scar is a bullet wound. This first cow was no exception. Every single one of the 10 animals eventually saved had been peppered with shot. It's easy to blame the local farmers and villagers, but the responsibility really lies with the authorities who allowed piecemeal agricultural development in earlier years. Now in Sri Lanka, development is planned to minimize conflict with wildlife. The Wildlife Department has its own elephant team led by Ainsley Fernando. The most available weapon to defend crops is almost always a shotgun, firing large slugs which wound rather than kill and set up festering sores. Dr. Netasinghe, head of the Sri Lankan veterinary team, treats the wounds with antibiotics as soon as the lead has been removed. Of the 10 darted elephants, 5 had been blinded in one eye. After the first darting success, Hofmeyer toasts Mr. Pereira, Assistant Wildlife Director, in King Coconut Milk. Not all dartings went as smoothly as the first. One morning the team went after a big tusker. The tusker charged, running down survival cameraman Dieter Plager, who managed to roll clear, leaving his camera still running. Not all the disasters were on the human side. The villagers demanded that 2 rogue elephants be removed. They'd been shot at so often that they were ready to kill on sight. The team approached the first bull with special caution. Hofmeyer fired his dart. When the rogue bull disappeared into thick cover, thunder flashes were used to drive away the rest of the herd. The dart had struck successfully, but success this time ended there. No wonder the bull had turned a man-killer. Not only was he riddled with buckshot, but he was blind in both eyes. There was nothing to do but put him out of his misery. The team had an untried weapon which, for the first time in the history of wildlife conservation, made possible the movement of an entire group of elephants weighing up to 5 tons each. This is the weapon, a trained elephant. The darted elephant has been given a tranquilizer. But how do you persuade a fully grown elephant to go where you want it to? The trained or monitor elephants provide some friendly persuasion. One initial difficulty was that the mahouts controlling the monitor elephants didn't trust the effectiveness of the drugs. At first, they were reluctant to work closely enough, but gradually their confidence increased. As with the capture of the wild elephants in the Keddah, the presence of trained animals calms things down. It's the monitor elephants as much as the tranquilizer which make the operation possible. The coconut palms are part of a plantation that has had to be abandoned due to constant raiding by the elephant herd. Soon the plantation will be productive again. The captured elephants will be moved 70 miles by road to Wilpatu, one of Sri Lanka's 5 national parks. A measure of the team's success is that the elephant is ready to eat even while tranquilized. As more elephants are brought in for their journey to Wilpatu, the size of Sri Lanka's problem becomes obvious. People appear from all directions. They all live nearby. And people and elephants just do not and cannot mix. People, especially hungry people, will always come first. But Sri Lanka feels that it has a chance, with good planning, of including most of its present stock of elephants in its design for living. Now the part of the operation that would be unthinkable without the help of the monitor elephants. The problem, to persuade an adult wild elephant to get into the back of a lorry. Eventually, the problem is solved. The elephant is aboard, tied up and happily eating. The journey to Wilpatu National Park can take from 3 to 5 hours according to the weather. Frequent stops are made to check on the load and to inject more tranquilizer when necessary. The monsoon is just beginning. There are typical pre-monsoon cloudbursts. The release area in Wilpatu is well into the center of the park. On the way, another storm hit them, turning the track into a slippery paste. Lind Alwis, then director of Sri Lanka's parks, promoted and masterminded the operation. Indeed, the whole future of Sri Lanka's elephants is his concern. In this, fortunately, he's backed by both Sri Lanka's president and the premier. When the storm passes, a final check by Ian Hofmeyer. Tracks dry quickly on Wilpatu's sandy soil. Now it's good going all the way to the release point. It has been decided to make the first release at night in the hope that the elephant won't immediately wander too far in strange surroundings. First, Hofmeyer gives it a very small dose of the immobilizing drug, and then the team guides it out with ropes onto the unloading ramp. Once it's asleep, the ropes are removed. A final shot of antidote into the ear. And then it's time for a prudent withdrawal. The number 1 inscribed on the elephant's backside in hard gloss paint will enable the parks to keep a check on its movements for quite a long time. They say that an elephant never forgets. One cow certainly didn't. She remembered where she'd come from and walked back 50 miles across country in 4 days to the forest where Ian Hofmeyer had darted her. And there she did her best to kill him, charging and nearly running him down. He believes she returned to look for her calf, which was sickly and had been taken after capture to Colombo Zoo for treatment. Number 10, the last one, is given its markings and its freedom. There can be no more catching for a while. The monsoon has finally broken. The arrival of the monsoon rain is a joyous time for Sri Lanka's elephants. Following the monsoon, there's limitless grass and green stuff and everything good to eat. Watching these scenes, it's easy to forget that the Asian elephant has a problem. The problem simply of survival. In Sri Lanka, elephants probably have a better chance than anywhere else. And not just because of a few spectacular rescue operations. 12% of this small country consists of national parks and reserves, and that's remarkable in overpopulated Asia. Though a huge clearance scheme for agriculture is underway, forest corridors for elephant movement between parks are being left intact and will be fully protected. If any further argument is needed to persuade the world that the Asian elephant cannot be allowed to disappear by default, then these scenes of a family herd bathing in Yala National Park, Sri Lanka, ought surely to be eloquent enough. Every August full moon in the city of Kandy, ancient capital of the Sinhalese kings, there takes place a ceremony called the Perahera. Perahera simply means procession. But this must be one of the most spectacular processions on earth. And what makes it so is the splendor of the 100 richly caparisoned elephants which take part. The most spectacular elephant of all is the giant tusker Raja, who carries on his back the sacred tooth relic of the Lord Buddha. The tusker leaves the temple and stalks through the streets of Kandy while acolytes unroll a white silken carpet for the great elephant to walk on. The Kandy Perahera represents 3,000 years of Eastern culture and religious life in which the Asian elephant has played a continuous and central part. It's impossible to watch the splendor of this ceremony without asking whether we are within sight of its disappearance. What would the Perahera be without its elephants? The President of Sri Lanka stands and pays his respects as the tusker passes. The elephants and the Perahera all came from the same place originally, from the wild. Asian elephants seldom breed in captivity. The question is, how much longer will they continue to live and breed in the jungles of Asia? For the record, this is the most optimistic view of the numbers that the world has left. India and Sri Lanka, 15,000. The mainland of Southeast Asia, 17,000. The islands of Southeast Asia, 13,000. It may sound a lot, but spread over that huge area, it still may not be enough to guarantee the Asian elephant's survival.
I'm terrified of spiders, completely terrified of them. I was screaming, sweating, retching.
It's all cats, even kittens. They just terrify me.
I'm really scared, to be perfectly honest. There's the thoughts of actually touching one, touching that tail. I mean, there's no sense in this, it's absolutely stupid, but it really is frightening.
If a live bird was able to come near me, it would be an instant reaction. My heart starts palpitating, whoosh. I can feel sort of the adrenaline had an immediate effect on my heart. I just panicked.
Pick one of the lights or something to stare at anyway, some point to fix your eyes on. Fix your eyes on that point. And don't take your
Most
eyes
of
off
us
that.
grow out of irrational
Fix right
fears
on
which
that
have us
point.
checking under the bed for scary
Fix your eyes
monsters.
up there.
But for 4 million animal
Listen to the sound
phobics,
of my voice.
such fear and blind
It
panic
is
dominate their
the sound
lives.
of my voice that's important, not the words that I'm saying.
Once a month, 30
don't have to
desperate arachnophobics come to London Zoo.
Appreciate
A common desire binds
follow
them to be
anything
cured of
that
their
I'm saying.
debilitating fear of
Just let the
spiders.
sound of my voice wash over you.
In a single
Eyes getting
afternoon
heavy
and
and
for
tired,
£90 each,
tired and heavy.
hypnotherapist Robert
If you have your eyes
Farrago
closed
claims he
already,
can
that's
put
great.
paid to
Listen
their
my voice.
anxiety
Eyes getting
permanently.
tired and heavy. People come to the Friendly Spider program when they've had enough, when the fear is so overwhelming or so strong or so inconvenient that they can't live with it anymore. Often some sort of event triggers their desire to come see us.
Landscape gardener Wayne Ward has a special reason to be cured of his spider phobia.
Too much of an hard work or not?
On Boxing Day, he and his fiancée Dina fly out to the Gambia to be married.
I've been told there's lots of tarantulas out there, which I'm not impressed with at all. So Dina will be checking the bed every night before I get in it, checking under the bed,
Had my orders.
turning my clothes inside and out, making sure nothing's crawled in. So then we should be all right. But any spiders appear, I'm not interested.
What are you, some sort of jetty, are you?
Spider, that's why you're here. Come across any, you can move them out.
Hey? Oh, I don't mind a spider, mate. Only little things.
When we're on jobs or we're, chopping trees down or whatever, you're always full of dirt and things fall on you. And now and again, I've come home and, spiders have crawled out of my jacket after I've taken them off that I haven't known about, thank God. But it's not clever.
I'd like to see him get over his phobia. And it's not a nice thing to be scared of something, is it? You shouldn't have to be scared of anything, really.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, not too bad.
Good. Got your dress ready? Yes, it's
Brilliant.
ready. Let's go. Just turn round and you can have a look and see.
It started off that we were all going out to the Gambia on just a family holiday, and we said, oh, well, since we're going somewhere nice and hot, let's get married over there. I've now got 5 bridesmaids, a page boy, which is Daniel, and we've got an usher. It's got bigger and bigger as it's gone along.
Right, I think that's pretty much it. Made the right decision, haven't you?
I think so. Just hope Wayne thinks so as well.
I was working on a house redecorating right the way through, me and my uncle. As we're going along, I've seen him look, and I've looked to see what he was looking at, and it was this big spider, about this size. I'm walking along the dashboard, so I've immediately stopped, pulled over, opened the door, jumped out, didn't bother looking, just straight out. Could have been knocked up in the air, but I had to get out of the cab because of the spider. Well, at the time I didn't think, so if I'd have got knocked up in the air, it'd been tough luck.
On Saturday, Wayne's going to the Friendly Spider Day. It's a last-ditch attempt to ensure that when the big day arrives, he'll be at Dina's side making his vows.
I'm not convinced I can be cured.
I think if I gave him a spider now, he'd probably...
Take off.
I think the wedding would be off, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Scary monsters, super creeps.
Most of us can't understand how a small 8-legged creature can evoke such terror. But a phobia can focus on all manner of crawling creatures.
Super creeps. Keep me running, running scared.
So why do people react with such revulsion? Graham Davey from Sussex University has a theory.
Phobics tend to have high disgust sensitivity levels. That is, they tend to be people who are disgusted by the animals rather than being frightened of them. And all of these animals actually have some link with disgust in some way. There are animals which look like disgusting things. Disgusting things are things like feces and mucus. So people tend to be frightened of slimy animals like snakes, frogs, newts, or animals that look slimy but actually aren't slimy. Spider fear is also related to disgust in some way. From at least the 10th century onwards, we find that people believed that spiders would often extract poisons from plants, and if a spider then touched food or fell into a vat of water, that food and water would have to be thrown away. But also, of course, media takes over as well, and spiders are now traditionally, culturally portrayed as being frightening animals.
There are only 3 ways to get a phobia. 1 is through a traumatic experience. 2 is through learning it from an authority figure, say a mother, father, teacher. And the 3rd way is through the culture. Those are the only 3 ways you can get a phobia. The people who come to this program are people who are literally terrified of spiders. People who tape up their doors to protect themselves from spiders in certain rooms. People who can't look at the tops of tomatoes. People whose whole lives are completely ruled by this fear.
I think it must be the speed, the way they move and scuttle so quickly that really bugs me. I think that's what really frightens me most of all.
Wendy Mould's life is ruled by profound spider phobia. Last year, the family moved to a large Edwardian house in Norfolk. Now they're busy renovating the place. But for Wendy, DIY spells danger.
This is a room that, so far since we moved into the house, we haven't actually lived in here at all. So there's still lots of work to do in the house, in this room. And as we see up in the curtains, there's lots of spiders' webs up there, and so it's going to be quite a problem for Wendy.
I don't want to pull the curtains down at the moment because I know there are lots of spiders in all the folds.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do it. I might have to do it with a broom even then I'd find it really hard.
Around the edges of the room, all the skirting boards have got to come out because we've got to replace the floor, and I know from the skirting boards I have taken out already, there's going to be quite lots of spiders behind there.
They're so quick. They're so quick. They look very aggressive to me as well. I don't like the way their legs bunch up. Even if it's a dead one, it doesn't make any difference. I can't even pick up a spider leg, a single spider leg from the sink or what have you. I'm always aware when I'm doing anything that I have to make sure there's no spiders. So before I put on a coat, I will shake out the arms and shake it out. If I'm getting out of the shower or the bath, shake out the bath towel, make sure there's no spiders in there. So there's a ritual every morning. And the ritual at night before I get into bed, I look under the covers, take back the pillows, make sure there's nothing there. When I had one walk across me, I just went berserk. I'm totally, my husband thought I was having a heart attack. I was screaming, sweating, retching, clawing at myself. If it had actually gone on my skin, I pulled off my t-shirt so vigorously. I had big scratches across my chest where I sort of tried to claw it off, Good, won't it, Fiona?
I suppose.
Yeah.
I think she's a little bit silly, really, in being scared of spiders, because really they're just harmless little animals. But I'm scared of them as well, so I can't really complain. But I think it's really the fact that I've picked it off my mum, because when she's screaming because there's a spider, it's sort of like rubbed off on me.
Sharon and somebody else, these spiders.
Right, so we're all up early in the morning, remember?
Wendy's long search for a cure may be about to end with a short journey to London and the Friendly Spider programme.
Friendly Spider
Programme.
programme.
Yeah. I hope I can be cured. I'm sceptical. In fact, I actually phoned up Robert Frogland after we'd booked it and said, look, do I have to believe this is going to work for it to work? And he said, no, I don't. I really hope I'll be cured because it's just horrid, isn't it? It's horrible.
Joe is a lion tamer. His family's been creating circus spectacle for 300 years. Most people would be too scared to get this close to all those teeth and claws, but not Joe Fawcett. Joe's bête noire haunts him not with a roar, but a squeak. Away from the big top, Joe the lion tamer confesses to a tiny secret.
This really has got to be one of my worst nightmares. My sort of worst, because I don't like the tail. The tail's absolutely revolting, the way they sort of move around. I don't like their ears either, and the way they sort of... But what frightens me worst of all is if they run, the tail goes stiff. I mean, I know there's no sense in this, it's absolutely stupid, but it really does sort of send a shiver down the spine. The gerbils at the bottom, well, it's the tail again, and the way they sort of keep moving. It's bad enough standing here, but I mean, if one was loose, I really couldn't handle that. And I suppose I'm really scared, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I have to sort of move away very fast. There's the thoughts of actually touching one, touching that tail. I mean, there's no sense in this, it's absolutely stupid, but it really is frightening.
Well, it's tragic, really, isn't it, for a lion tamer?
That's nice, isn't it? I've been a great yarn for all year presenting a group of lions. I mean, lions I feel completely differently about. I mean, although they're dangerous, a lion can kill you quite easily. They don't scare me in the slightest way. But going in with a cage full of lions, I find a lot easier than going in a room with 3 mice. There's no logic at all. When a mouse runs, its tail goes up. I mean, I sort of go all stiff and run away. But if a lion was going for me, I mean, I'd feel a lot better about it. A lot braver. People give me a terrible time about this. Rebecca especially. Terrible. Oh, that's stupid. I mean, even now, that's stupid, isn't it? I mean, I know it's absolutely ridiculous. I know. It's one of those frightening things. Let's hope I get better as I get older.
OK, ladies, can we have some quiet, please? Right, last lesson about...
Joe Fawcett might be resigned to his phobia, but Linda Holland faces her living nightmare every waking hour.
...that are in trouble. One species was the dodo. It became extinct, right.
Linda teaches at an exclusive international girls' school. Her subject, biology, and she's petrified of birds.
We have an expression in English called to be as dead as a dodo. What type of animal is the dodo?
A bird.
A bird?
A bird appears and it's just, I can't do anything about it. There's just, the heart starts beating fast and there's nothing I can do. I'm absolute, I'd rather sit an exam, I'd rather come down a black run skiing, I'd rather do on a roller coaster, you know, on those at Disneyland where they do the corkscrew turns, anything than handle a bird.
If birds are flying down near me, swooping down on me, you'll find I'll duck. I'll swoop as well, I'll duck down to avoid them. And that's a bit disconcerting if you're out with friends and they don't realise, for instance, or they've forgotten that you've got a bird phobia. If a bird came close to me, I would run away. It's fight or flight, I'd flee immediately and scream probably as well. Now, I have here in class, I have one skeleton of a bird. I know that birds are harmless. I know about the biology of birds. I teach about the physiology of flight. It's quite small without the feathers on and things, isn't it? The bones of muscles and feathers and wings, but I still can't do anything about it. There's nothing I can do. Very light. Do you want to pass it along so they can see? I know it's a silly fear. I'm very well aware that I don't want to be transmitting my fear to children.
I'm scared of bugs.
Spiders.
Lizards.
Moth. Jellyfish, because they're slimy and slippery and they sting you and they've got all these little hanging legs. And I think they're awful. And they're see-through.
Yeah. So we've got this is the moment now to meet these pigeons.
Determined to overcome her dread, Linda has bravely agreed to take part in an experiment using a heart rate monitor to gauge her physical reaction to birds. Even the thought of it is traumatising, and her pulse rate begins to rise.
Come on, come on, come on.
It's now reading 89, 88.
Come on, come on.
In front of her, a bird phobic's living nightmare. Linda hasn't been as close as this in years.
Do you think you could hold one?
No, definitely not.
Stroke it? Huh? I've had them all my life, and they've always been
there's
fantastic animals. They're not.
I'm sure.
They're not, not harmless at all.
Probably like how I like dogs.
They're like my children. Actually, like children to me. They don't like, they don't.
I'm sure. I don't like its beak. Don't like its legs. The head moving round. Its claws.
Okay, how high is it gone? 113. That's definitely the highest we've seen so far.
I don't want you to fight your thoughts now, but I do want you to begin to slow them down.
To get to grips with the phobia which has dogged her life, Linda booked an appointment with hypnotherapist Robert Farrago.
Deeper now with every breath out. All hypnosis is subconscious domination of the subject. It's not a very politically correct thing to say, but the point is that the hypnotist is the authority figure. The hypnotist takes charge of the other person's mind, and the hypnotist changes that other person's mind. And one thing you need to acknowledge right now, one little fact you need to let sink deep into your mind, like a stone thrown into a clear mountain lake, is that birds are safe. Once I've got someone hypnotized, I've got them in a deeply receptive state of mind. And when they're in that state of mind, I can then guide their mind to certain images, and I can begin to take control over their subconscious reactions to the world. So when they're in hypnosis, I can literally reprogram their subconscious mind, switch that survival response off, and then change their life. From this moment on, you will be able to see birds as a scientist would, for that's what you are. You'll be able to see them for the fascinating, extraordinary creatures that they are. You'll be able to touch them. You'll be able to just watch them, knowing that every instinct in their little minds keeps them from wanting to get near you. Imagine yourself now experiencing a bird, seeing it for what it really is, a magnificent result of evolution.
It's so light, yeah.
But it has to be light to fly.
To fly, exactly.
Parrots are the only birds with feet with two on the front.
I haven't touched one of these for a long, long time.
There you go.
Yep. Right.
Do you want to try having him on your hand?
I'll let him sit on that hand and you let him feed out of that one.
Okay, his hands will
Let me feel him. Will he grip me? Oh,
yeah.
God.
And then bring them together.
Bring the two hands together so you can feed. There you go. So drop your shoulders.
Right.
Well, there you go. Now you've got a bird in your hand. Apparently.
This is amazing.
There you go.
As Linda came to terms with her phobia, Wayne Ward wrestled with the worrying prospect of facing up to his.
What you got, Lamar? Oh, London Zoo. Cure me phobia of spiders.
In less than 24 hours, he'll know if his doubts are justified or if he'll be up to the challenge of his Gambian wedding.
So they're going to hypnotise you, aren't they?
So they say, yeah. Can't see it working myself, though.
Practically any animal can be the focus of an animal phobia. It's like an invisible prison, inhibiting and dominating its victim's life. Lynn Evans is anxious to break free. She works for a large book wholesaler and is paralysed by the sight of a frog.
I can't remember a time when I wasn't scared of frogs. I have quite bad nightmares. And I can't open books on a bad day for fear of seeing a photograph of a frog, which is quite hard when you've got all these lovely books around you. Something like the Guinness Book of Animal Records, there are going to be frogs in there somewhere. And I wouldn't necessarily look at the F section. I think it's something to do with the lack of control as well. They do strike me as the sort of things that might just sort of come at me. I've got no idea why this is. I do find it very hard to sort of explain all that, because it sounds so completely irrational. I'd thought that I'd avoided frogs to the extent where they just wouldn't really interfere with my life that much. But I've recently discovered that even in central London, you can't always get away from these things. And I particularly had a shock because I came upon a frog quite unexpectedly on the Northern Line. It's rarely affected, but since Thamesmead started featuring this amazingly noticeable poster, I do occasionally wish to just leap off the train, because it's an image which takes me by surprise. It makes me feel sick and it makes me feel quite wobbly. It's an image that stays with me all day once I've seen it. I'm always conscious if I'm out walking that that leaf on the floor might be a frog. And it's always at the back of my mind. I would very much like to be cured, but I'm rather afraid of the process leading up to the cure, and that's one of the reasons I've never really explored it before.
Hi, Lynn. So this is our second time of meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. And what we want to do today is really three things. We're going to review
The large majority of phobia sufferers rarely seek professional help, and opinions differ about how to treat them. The Maudsley Hospital is Europe's leading centre for anxiety disorders and a foremost teaching hospital. Here, Simon Darnley and his colleagues treat 150 patients each week.
The treatment for animal phobias is called exposure, which is a very graded step-by-step way of getting someone to face their fear in their own time, and to face it and to stay with the anxiety that causes, and then to find out that anxiety levels off and comes down over time. And once that anxiety comes down, they've beaten it. It's the anxiety they need to face. And by facing that in with their thoughts and also the physical feelings it causes, at their own pace, in a graded step-by-step way, you find that it has about an 80% success rate. The more blips you have, the less and less they'll get, the higher they get. They'll start to come down by themselves. That's really good. The anxiety about doing that, what would it be?
It was really quite high.
Yeah.
Because every new image, I just sort of recoiled, absolute horror. That's fine, that's okay.
That's fine. So I've got,
The therapy session progresses, and Lynn makes the leap safely from frog images to the real thing.
Mm-hmm. What's your anxiety about that?
I suppose it's not too bad, really.
Good. How would you rate it if you were to pin it down? Let's focus on that.
Sort of 3-ish.
3-ish?
I think 3-ish.
So the therapy roughly takes between 6 to 8 sessions, and we would then follow people up from 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and a year follow-up to make sure that they're maintaining their gains and continuing to improve. How close do you think you get to it?
It's got little red eyes.
Good. If you can gradually move in your own time as close as you feel comfortable with, they can just about cope with, and that's really good.
There again, it's not. Uh-oh.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, Frog.
No, that's all right.
She's done really well to pick the box up now, hasn't she? She even said that she likes the frog. She's not even looking at it as she's talking about it now, which is obviously helpful.
Eventually, Lynn summons up the courage to get ever closer to the frog.
Here we go. Lid off. Next stage. She's coping well with the movement though. She's not flinching with that.
What do you think you can do?
I don't know.
That's good.
He doesn't like me doing it. No.
That's brilliant.
I don't think I've ever voluntarily touched one.
Remarkably, after only 2 hours, Lynn has taken the first tentative steps to controlling her anxiety. And on the way, she's made a new and most unexpected friend.
Keeping it near the area when you're touching it. Excellent. Knowing what you've done before. Can I move
The Maudslay's technique depends on self-help. Lynn's next step will be to take her newfound friend home. So what did she think of her progress so far?
Well, it started off with me being totally terrified, and I'm totally relieved. A, it's over, and B, I seem to have made friends with, well, to a certain extent, with this little chap. And I'm taking him home to get to know him a bit better.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
Phobias affect all ages, all social classes. And although more women than men admit to it, it's known to afflict both sexes equally. In the scary kingdom of animal phobias, there are a multitude of conflicting theories about their origins. Sigmund Freud believed that sexuality and aggression underpin all anxiety disorders, especially phobias. Surrounded by Freud memorabilia in a museum devoted to the psychologist's work, Dr. Paul Williams explained why.
We as psychoanalysts would want to think about an animal phobia from the point of view of what the animal symbolises for the person concerned. I recall a female patient in treatment who had an apparent fear of cats, and it became apparent in the therapy. And she had a fantasy that cats engaged in sexual activity whenever they wanted. They were sort of free to do this. And she herself was a somewhat prim and proper person. And we discovered that actually she had a very deep-seated unconscious envy of what she thought was the cat's freedom to do what it liked, essentially.
A lot of the theories that analysts have are usually no more than intellectual masturbation. It feels good when people are doing it to talk about these things at some higher level, some discovering sexuality and making links between people's fears, you know, with frogs and mothers' breasts and stuff like that. But there's absolutely no evidence for this.
I think if you are a therapist and someone presents themselves as a phobic of a particular animal, and you start talking about wider issues, the person will follow you. The subject will follow you wherever you want to go. But I think that is intrusive, I think it's dangerous, and it's inappropriate. The person who's coming to you for a phobia wants that phobia removed. And as the therapist, that's your job.
Unless one gets to the bottom of what worries this particular patient, anxiety is likely to return.
One person's lovable pet is another person's worst nightmare.
I don't like their eyes, the fur, the way they stalk around. I think they're spooky. I think they're supernatural in some sort of way. They just terrify me.
Oh, I think
I don't really know what to say about them. They're just horrible. Stalking around. To me, they're just looking at me as if to say, I'm going to get you. If I see a cat in the street, I can look away or walk across the road or get out of the way. But if I'm actually trapped in a house somewhere, in a room, and a cat came in, I just jump up and my body drains. And I'm just absolutely engulfed in fear. It's all cats, even kittens. The way they pounce around, you don't know what a cat's going to do next, but especially a kitten. They're so playful, they're pouncing around, they're jumping around. I don't think anybody understands your fear unless they've got a fear themselves of something. Then they know how you feel. It affects my life in many ways. There's places I won't go if I know there's cats going to be there. I've got friends who've got cats, and unless I can trust them and I know that they put them away into a bedroom or outside, I wouldn't go around there. I've been into pubs where you could be sitting having a meal and all of a sudden a cat will appear. And I'm just terrified. I can't sit, I can't rest and eat my meal in peace. I'm absolutely terrified of them. It might as well be a lion.
Friday night, North Acton. A pre-gig rehearsal for London-based band The Third Kind. By day, Rachel Smith-Ronsley is an advertising account executive. 3 nights a week she manages the band. But close encounters of a different kind preoccupy her.
As soon as I look at them, I actually magnify them in panic. Even though I can't stand them, I daren't let them run under the bed or disappear behind a radiator, because if that happens, then I'm stuck. I have to leave the house and I can't sleep there or I can't sit there until it's found.
Rachel's phobia is a textbook case. It casts a shadow over her life. Unexpected encounters, even with dead spiders, trigger an immediate irrational response, and terror lurks round every corner.
Well, I was here at Camden Market about 2 years ago, just doing last-minute Christmas shopping, and there weren't actually that many stalls here, because it was so early. And suddenly, from quite a big distance, I don't know, 100 yards or so, I saw the framed Peruvian tarantula, at least I think that's what it is, bird eating or something, and basically passed out. Well, I banged my head on one of those metal poles, yeah, on the stalls. But I think I was a bit concussed for a day as well. Well, I know exactly where they are and I'm not going to look at them. I'm going to studiously avoid them. And I know that they're dead, but I've made it. Another occasion was in the toilet. I saw the mother of all spiders. I screamed for help. So Michaela came through with a pint glass and a postcard. He actually had the spider in the glass. I was standing about, what, a yard, 2 yards away from him. And it just exploded. I honestly believe that I was in such a state that there was some sort of electrical field around me and that I made it spontaneously combust. I really do want to get over it. It's been such a big part of my life that, and it's such a silly thing, but I'd like to hold my head up and be able to be in a room and not, you know, faint or crumble. Absolutely petrified.
Frightened to death.
Saturday morning, and Wayne and Dina's hopes for a successful wedding in Gambia are pinned on the Friendly Spider programme.
Bang blame you if it goes wrong.
What, divorce?
Yeah, divorce.
Will we get there?
Here we are.
Luck.
Kiss, kiss.
Have a kiss. Say good luck, Daddy.
How are you feeling, Wendy?
Nervous?
Spiders, horrible, yes? Terrible things happen to you when you encounter spiders.
Rachel, Wayne and Wendy join 30 other arachnophobes. Now a single purpose links their lives, to conquer their fear of spiders.
You need to know it. 2 minutes now and talk about what it is you don't like. So pairs of two. Yeah? There you go.
The rest of the world might not understand, but meeting a fellow arachnophobe is like meeting a soulmate.
It's probably harder for you being a man.
I can't even watch them on television now. I used to be able to, but if I don't know where it is, I can't relax at all.
Yeah.
And because it means it could hide, we go behind a radiator or something like that. I couldn't bear it.
All right, what else don't you like about spiders? Speed. Oh, let's do a quick poll, by the way. How many people don't like spiders' legs? Don't like the legs? Whoa, 100%. There we go. Speed. What do you mean good? What else don't you like about spiders? Anything else? The bodies. What else? Anything else? Okay. And I introduce to you the man who knows a great deal about spiders, Paul Pierscott.
Thank you very much, Robert. One of the very first things to put across is there are over 30,000 different types of spider in the world. It's an incredibly successful group, partly because they've been around almost longer than any other animal has.
The Friendly Spider programme combines group hypnosis with expert facts and figures from the invertebrate department at London Zoo.
We all have a lot of misconceptions about spiders, and all kinds of negative things that just aren't correct. And you see it even here at the zoo. Teachers will bring in young children into the invertebrate house here, and they'll say, "Oh, look at that, children, isn't it horrible? Come on, let's go and see the nice giraffes or something." We tend to pigeonhole spiders as bad pests. That's a pest, right? But of course, it's so bizarre because it's quite the reverse. It's the spiders which are controlling the real pests. The cockroaches, the flies, the mosquitoes, whatever it might be. They are very own pest control officers for us.
Just let the sound of my voice wash over you.
Meanwhile, Robert Farrago is delving deep into his subject's subconscious. Since it began 5 years ago, 1,500 arachnophobes have been through the Friendly Spider programme.
Every breath out is like a wave rolling slowly and gently onto the shore. During the actual hypnosis, people often say it's an incredibly boring experience. They are expecting to go out like a light, they're expecting to lose consciousness, but they don't. So they're just sitting there listening to me prattle on. Oftentimes they're thinking, I'm not hypnotized, what is he talking about? In this state of mind, you can see things in their proper perspective. And when you are in this state of mind, you can make changes. I get a great deal of pleasure out of helping people to achieve their goals. In order to do that, I have to have power. And that power over their minds is something I'm comfortable with. I'm trained to use, I'm experienced using it, and it's fun. Yes, I'm a control freak, absolutely. I have no problem with that. And now, take the fear of spiders and put it into the cloud. Turn the cloud black. Take all the sweating, the shaking, the anxiety, the nervousness, the tension, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the inconvenience of this fear, put it into the cloud and turn it black. With every number I count now, it's going to move further and further away. 1. Watch the cloud go. It's good riddance to bad rubbish. You don't need this fear. You don't want it, and you can watch it go 2. Moving away from you. What a relief. What a weight off your shoulders. A burden off your mind. It's a lovely feeling, the sun coming out. 3, even further away. Hard to know how you ever got this thing in the first place. It doesn't make any sense. 4, it's a tiny little speck, a smudge, and nothing on the horizon. Here it goes. Keep your eyes closed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From this moment on, you will be calm, comfortable, and relaxed around spiders. This is the one you like to encounter at home. It's not something you have to do, but it's something you can do.
No, Robert's table.
Being in the container does make.
Okay, if you want to put your hand by the side of the spider first, just at the side of the container. There we go. And then you can realise that it's not going to do. Yeah. All right? Not worried? That's great. You feel you can cope with them at home?
Yeah. Go on then.
How are you?
I touched him.
It's brilliant.
I mean, the thing is, these spiders are so small and delicate that it's difficult to actually feel them.
I'm still sweating. No, I can't go near
How close have you been?
at the moment. They tell me I will be able to. I just hope I will.
It doesn't move much. It stays sitting. So it's moving around a little bit, just to say that. But it is a little spider, but it's good to start small. Have a look at that. Come a bit closer. Come a bit closer. You can do it. Right. And then you've got 3 of different sizes.
I mean, I can't believe that I've got one behind me, like really near, and I'm not freaking.
So the job here is to capture the spider, safely contain it, and then, release it. So we get it to move. Well, get it to move. There you go. Quick. Oh, I'll get it. Hold on. Okay. Go. There you go. Well done. Sliding the paper under.
Legs. Oh, legs.
Yep, careful with those legs.
Up, legs. Come on, up.
There you go. Okay, now pretend like you're going to the garden.
I'm not going to the garden, chaps.
Right, okay.
That's a good question. I forget. I think it's fine. But they have all got names as well, but I can't remember that. Generally, it's the same. There are some variances, depending on some ancient groups of spiders where they're a bit different. But all the spiders have got 8 legs.
I touched it. I didn't really feel it, to be honest, because it ran away, but very light and delicate. And,
that's a rafter spider.
I've never ever been that near to a spider, actually, I don't think. I've actually put my finger on it. I mean, the idea of actually just going like that, on top of it, about 2 millimetres away. I feel like I just won the Nobel Peace Prize or something.
To do it. I passed. I felt calm. It's amazing. Felt really good. Yeah.
Do you think it's worked?
Definitely it's worked. It has. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it's worked.
Well, I just feel exactly the same as I did before I arrived, to be honest, and I can't believe these people touching them now. I mean, I can't even get up towards the table to actually look at them. I can only look at them from a distance. I'm just so jealous of everyone else who, has managed to touch them and pick them up.
Okay, all right? Because I want to make sure that you're not going to drop her as well. So it's in my interest to make sure you're happy. Yeah? It's fine, isn't it? Yeah? It really is those few seconds before it touches your skin, and then after that, it's what am I worried about?
Nothing.
Yeah? Is that great? Lift your hands up a bit like this, and then...
And here we go.
That's great. See? How's that?
I can't believe I've held this thing.
I can't believe he's actually got that thing in his hand. I don't believe it. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted.
No.
I don't believe it. I'm sorry.
Because we do a spider talk every day at 2 o'clock, and we don't let people hold a spider because we want to make sure they don't come to any harm.
Can you take a photograph?
Yeah. No.
Gambia, here we come.
There's a couple of things about why I find hypnotherapy a bit dodgy. The first thing is that majority of the time hypnotherapy you have to pay for. The other thing about hypnotherapy that I find difficult, it's somebody else doing it to you. It's almost as if they're kind of magical salesmen saying charisma, using their charisma. And therefore, if you do have a setback, you have to have more hypnotherapy.
Well, I have quite strong feelings about what I call fast food treatment. There's fast food psychiatry, fast food hypnotherapy, quick fixes of all kinds are the fashion these days. But I think if you want to arrive at a lasting, durable understanding of what's wrong with you, it takes time.
Later that week, Robert Farrago took Linda Holland to confront her bird phobia. Linda's last visit to Trafalgar Square was as a fearless child, aged 3. She's been too frightened to risk coming here since.
You're standing near what is, let's face it, a sea of pigeons.
Yeah.
And you're not...
Bird intensity.
Yeah, and you may be flinching from time to time, but
Yeah.
you're not freaking out. And that's all we want, is you to be, you know, I mean, there are lots of people who wouldn't be normally afraid of birds who wouldn't be in this environment.
It's a tribute to Linda's determination that she's come so far in so little time since her therapy. Whether the effectiveness of her treatment measures up to her courage remains to be seen.
I feel much more comfortable. I'm still wary of them landing on me. In fact, I don't want them to land on me. Go away. I've never been able to hold those birds in the zoo like I did today, or go near that parrot. Yeah, I can't believe that I've actually touched those birds. I'm amazed how it's gone. Amazed. I wish I could hold these birds, the ones in Trafalgar Square. Should I try? Stay there.
There you go.
Don't move. Oh,
sorry.
Put that flapping.
In this age of anxiety, we all have our private fears. For animal phobics, the promise of relief is a promise of liberation.
The clear blue waters and rolling surf of California and Hawaii are a perfect playground in the sun. They're also a hunting ground. The great white is one of the few sharks big enough to attack and eat people. John Ferreira felt the force of one such attack.
When it first hit me, it was such a hard blow. I mean, it really hit hard. And it folded me in half so quickly, I didn't have any idea what was going on.
Was it deliberate man-hunting, or did the shark make a mistake? Rod Orr has often asked himself the same question.
And the shark had buried its bottom teeth into my face here and through my nose, and the top teeth were in my neck. I think he realized that I wasn't a seal at that time, but why he didn't finish biting the head off and why he didn't thrash, I don't know. Just luck of the draw.
New research throws some light on why the attacks happen. Like killer whales and grizzly bears before them, large sharks are beginning to inspire respect rather than fear among the people who choose to share the oceans with them. The Farallon Islands are a national wildlife refuge administered by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. They lie just 32 kilometers off the coast of California, west of San Francisco. In thousands of years of Native American legend, their sinister, jagged peaks were said to be the islands of the dead. For millions of years, they have been a regular feeding place of the white shark. Every autumn, these forbidding rocks attract a group of the huge predators. Sharks have small brains compared with other vertebrates, but their acute vision and sense of smell make them highly skilled and successful hunters. Rough seas and rugged wave-washed cliffs make this an excellent hunting ground. There are few other places in the world where white sharks can be so closely observed in the act of killing. Among their principal prey is the California sea lion. Adult males weigh up to 500 kilos, a worthwhile meal for a white shark. They share the islands with northern elephant seals. Peter Pyle is a biologist working with a team at the Point Reyes Bird Observatory who spend 6 months of the year on the Farallon studying birds. In the autumn, his interest turns to pinnipeds, seals and sea lions, and to the sharks that prey on them. California sea lions haul out here to rest throughout the year, basking on the shore and often enduring plagues of flies as the price of their respite from the sea. In the autumn, they're joined by juvenile elephant seals coming ashore for the first time for months. The seasonal concentration of young, naive elephant seals draws white sharks like a magnet. Landing on these rocky shores is no easy matter. Especially at high tide, huge waves can wash the seals into the surf. When they find themselves in the water, the seals have to swim along the shore looking for a place to haul out. The sharks are waiting for them, and Peter Pyle is waiting for the sharks.
Shark is a visual predator, white shark here, more than anything. It stalks in the depths, probably behind ridges, against the rocks where the pinnipeds are going to have a harder time seeing it. And then when the time's right, it'll rush up from below and strike the pinniped at the surface. So I think that background coloration gives the shark an advantage to hunting over rocks as opposed to sand, where the silhouette of the shark would probably be clearly visible from above.
The researchers on the Farallon see as many as 80 attacks every autumn. In the course of their annual hunt, they occasionally attack people as well. Every year, tens of thousands of sun-seekers migrate to the beaches and surf of California. Thousands more have settled here to enjoy the eternal summer. Beneath them, the sharks are watching. Sharks have increased in number along with the populations of seals and sea lions, which are protected by federal law. Many of the best surfing beaches are near their breeding colonies or reefs where they rest. In 50 years, there has been a total of 60 attacks on humans in California, 6 of them fatal. With the rising number of people in the water, it's surprising that there haven't been more. But are they acts of deliberate hunting, or just cases of mistaken identity? A surfer paddling out to sea, arms waving and feet trailing, must look to a shark remarkably like a sea lion. Kirk Johnson and John Ferreira are dedicated surfers. Both survived attacks by white sharks. Kirk Johnson was hit by an immense force.
I really didn't know what was going on. I had no clue of what was going on until the thing started shaking me really hard. And I knew what was going on then. I started reaching back and hitting the shark on the head and the mouth and the face with my hand. And it was still shaking me. It was about 5 feet underwater, shaking me pretty hard. And the shark was right next to me. I had the dorsal fin right next to me, and then farther back, a tail fin about 8 feet back, a tail fin just sitting there right next to me, not moving at all. So I screamed at it and kicked at it, kind of started swimming backstroke away from it. Then it just let go of me. And I came to the surface, and the water was turning all dark around me with blood. But this thing was huge. It was at least 15 feet, probably 18.
Mine was about the same, very large. I describe it as about the size of a Volkswagen, the body of it, it's just the girth. And the fin of it was about 3 feet out of the water while it was just going past me very slowly. And you pretty much know exactly what it is. It's something wanting to eat you, you know, and you want to get the hell out of there.
Typically, among surfers who have been attacked, both men returned to the water as soon as they could. John Ferreira within a month of his encounter with the shark. But both now avoid surfing near places where seals are numerous. Rocky reefs, where they haul out to bask, are often attended by sharks. Seals and sea lions have been the prey of white sharks for at least 20 million years. They prefer cold waters, but being warm-blooded, they're swift and agile and difficult for the sharks to catch. Some of them have had narrow escapes. California's sea lions are attacked far less often than elephant seals. This might be because they travel and rest in groups, with more pairs of eyes on the lookout for danger. White sharks have evolved to catch their nimble prey by a remarkable adaptation. They maintain an internal temperature a few degrees higher than that of the surrounding water. Warm muscles allow the shark to attack in a sudden burst of speed out of its ambush on the sea floor. Another advantage of being warm-blooded is that it helps the shark to digest the blubber of seals or whales, a very rich source of energy. The great whales, before their decline, might also have played an important part in the diet of the white shark, especially as carrion. Its immensely thick layer of insulating blubber makes a whale a huge reserve of energy for a shark big enough to bite into it. Now, though, humpback whales are scarce, along with blue whales and sperm whales, and to find a carcass washed up on a beach is a rare treat for a foraging shark. But if there is one to be found, the shark's acute sense of smell will detect it. This humpback whale, having died of unknown causes, provides a huge meal for hungry sharks. Scientists studying the fuel economy of sharks have found that 27 kilos of whale blubber is enough to sustain a great white for 45 days. But today, scavenging whales is not a reliable source of food. A large predator must have easy access to an abundant source of living prey. At Ano Nuevo, on the coast of California, the beach is paved with elephant seals. Their huge, blubbery bodies represent an overflowing larder for white sharks, one that is regularly raided. The rather elegant females can only watch and try to keep out of the way as the dominant bulls fight for their favors. Years ago, this colony contained 25,000 animals. Now it's 10 times as big, at 250,000. This increase in food supply is good fortune for the white sharks. The seal colony is literally a pup factory. As soon as they're weaned, the babies will have to leave the beach and start to feed themselves. It will be 6 months before they see land again. Many of those now feeding contentedly at their mothers' sides will find themselves seeking shelter on the wave-swept rocks of the Farallon Islands. It's as well that they have no way of knowing what awaits them there. Even the big old bulls have no defense against adult white sharks.
The great white shark is an apex predator that feeds on marine mammals. When they're young, they feed on fish. As they grow older, they begin feeding on strictly marine mammals. And that puts them at the top of the food chain. The elephant seal is considered to be the preferred prey at the Farallons in that they're solitary animals, they're easy to capture because they're slow swimmers, and they tend to be naive when they're young, and they sit at the surface, which they shouldn't do. It's very exciting to see a shark in the water. These sharks are huge, you know, we're talking 15 to 18 feet with a weight of maybe 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. And they have an amazing presence in the water. As they move through the area, they're very controlled. They know where they're going before they get there. And so you just are kind of in awe of this silent, huge predator moving through the water.
As it patrols beneath the waves, a shark can see the silhouettes of seals and sea lions at the surface. It relies on stealth and surprise. Sea lions moving in packs are hard to surprise, but elephant seals are often alone. The shark rushes up from the bottom in an ambush attack and bites the seal so that it dies almost instantly. A lethal bite ensures the seal can't fight back and injure the shark. It's a very violent, aggressive attack. The seal dies quickly from loss of blood. To take bites out of the carcass, the shark must swing its head back and forth in a sawing movement, cutting through muscle and bone while its huge tail drives it forward. 10 centimeters of blubber provides high-energy food for the predator. A human body, even a fat one, would be bony by comparison. Peter Pyle monitors the attacks from his vantage point high on the island. Most attacks take place in the high-risk zone, within 500 meters of the shore. Once the location is pinpointed, Pyle hurries to the boat landing. If it's a big seal, it may take the shark half an hour to eat it. This gives the team time to get on the water and alongside the kill. They're grateful when the sea is relatively calm. Their boat is only just over 4 meters long. When they reach the seal, the 2 men lower underwater cameras beside the boat. Other sharks will try to move in for a bite at the prey, but if the original killer is a big animal, they stay away. Scars on their skin show that white sharks often fight over their food. These marks, together with the shape of their dorsal fins, enable Pyle and Scott Anderson to identify individual predators.
We're out there getting as much video as we can on these sharks, and a lot of them have scars of various types. Some of them look like aggressive scars where maybe one shark has come in and bitten another to kind of warn it away from the carcass. A lot of the females seem to have scars along the gills, which may relate to mating scars. These scars are pretty permanent. They look white at first and then they turn black, and after a while, you know, we will mark down all the spots where these scars are, and we'll be able to use those in our individual ID.
In 8 years of work, Scott Anderson has identified more than 50 white sharks at the Farallon Islands. 20 of them return time and time again. He finds that large individuals tend to feed in the same place each year, patrolling areas where they've been successful before. Smaller sharks, less well established in the hierarchy, move around the island much more, looking for chance encounters with prey. After the initial violent attack, sharks feed in a controlled, almost calm manner, contrary to the popular idea of a feeding frenzy. A 180-kilo meal will be finished in between 5 and 10 bites, of 13 to 23 kilos each. The biologists watch individual sharks for periods of anything from 1 day to over 4 weeks. They think that once a shark has had a successful hunt here, it moves away from the islands to the seal breeding colonies and haulouts on the mainland coast. They have seen as many as 80 attacks in one season. From this, they estimate that at least 27 white sharks regularly hunt seals at the Farallons. Working in a boat that's smaller than the sharks that surround it takes courage.
It's always a thrill when you've got white sharks circling around below you. I don't think we'll ever kind of get over that thrill. You know, we don't feel any real threat from them. They're just there, they're looking at us, they're curious. It's interesting in that the biggest ones seem to be the smartest about it and know sooner that we're not edible and disappear quicker. It's actually the little ones that we're a little more worried about, maybe the 9 to 12 footers that we see here, because they're less experienced. We don't know what they're going to do. They're less predictable as far as I'm concerned. They're the ones that may end up getting a little excited near the boat. I think they're also the ones that might be hitting surfers more off the coast, or the small ones, because when a shark hits a surfer or a surfboard or the boat for that matter, it's making a mistake. It doesn't really want to do that. It's not gaining anything from it. So I think when a surfer gets attacked, it's probably these smaller ones that don't realize what they're doing quite as much as the bigger, more experienced sharks.
Well, last year I was scared by a shark that came up to investigate the board that I had out when it was really close to the boat, actually bringing it into the boat about a foot away. And when the shark attacked it, it went violently through the area, incredibly quick, incredibly loud, and it really scared me. So it made me realize that there's certain times when dealing with these animals where there is some danger. But most of the time, when they're around the boat, they're very controlled, they're looking for food, and it usually seems pretty safe to me for the most part.
It's safe, for the most part, for other people working underwater close to the Farallon Islands. They're abalone fishermen, collecting highly prized shellfish for the market. Abalone are plentiful here, but rare in other parts of the California coast. One reason for their abundance off the Farallons is the danger from attack by white sharks. Divers are most vulnerable while they're on the surface or in the water column. On the seabed, they're relatively safe from ambush. There, the sharks no longer have the natural advantage of camouflage. As they measure the abalone to make sure that they're above the legal minimum size, the divers keep a sharp lookout for cruising great whites. Thousands of sport divers also gather abalone, but they do it by snorkeling without the benefit of scuba gear. They must return repeatedly to the surface to breathe, and this is when 90% of shark attacks take place. Rod Orr holds the dubious distinction of having been attacked twice in his pursuit of abalone.
Just at the edge of vision, I saw something, but I didn't realize what it was, and then the little light dawned. What I could see was the gills on this white shark, and the shark was like 10, 11 foot long, and it closed on me. And when I looked back at it, it closed the distance by half, and then it started coming in fast, and I knew it was after me, but I tried to get behind this rock. And when I tried to get behind it, the shark came in on my left side. His mouth just opened up and his jaw actually just came out of his mouth. And I had a row of teeth marks up in my scalp where he bit down. And the worst damage was probably to my nose and to my lower eye, because I had a hole through the upper eyelid and the bottom eyelid. All I could see was the teeth out of my, from my left eye. I could see the water down there, and I could see all the teeth in the top jaw and the bottom jaw. But I was face down in it, and it was just like, they looked huge. They looked like they were 3 inches long. I know they weren't that big, but they were just all white. And I could see about 10 or 12 teeth. I thought he was about 12 feet, but they measured the bite marks, and they figured he was like 15 to 17. When I reached up on him, he felt like a Buick. He was huge.
Why did the shark spit Rod out? Most probably, he felt wrong. Instead of having a deep layer of blubber, his head was hard and bony, without enough fat to make a worthwhile meal. In Hawaii, tiger sharks include prey with just such a bony exterior in their diet. Hawaii has some of the most famous surfing beaches in the world. It's where the sport was invented. In fact, for Hawaiians, it's more than a sport. It's a way of life with cultural, even religious overtones. The clear blue waters are a playground for thousands of people and home to an enormous variety of marine life, including the tiger shark. The old Hawaiians had a special word for sharks that eat people, nui. Even before natural prey such as large fish and lobsters, monk seals and green turtles had been reduced by overhunting, the tiger shark was known to take people. Local surfers reassure themselves in different ways about the dangers of surfing in shark-infested waters.
Well, I'm not worried about the tiger shark because I feel like that's my alma kua, which means it's a religious belief that Native Hawaiians have about the sharks.
Depends. If there's a lot of people around, I don't worry about it too much because the odds of getting eaten is probably a little less. But when you go surfing other secret spots and stuff, that's when you're always like looking down, checking it out.
If you were to go surfing, go snorkeling when it's flat, you'd see 1 million turtles, and that's what the tiger sharks eat.
Green turtles are a regular part of the tiger shark's diet. Whole shells have been found in their stomachs. If white sharks sometimes mistake people for seals, do tigers think surfers are turtles? David Silver thinks they might.
On the east side, on the island of Kauai, at this beach called Wailua Beach. I got attacked off this point here, about 75 yards out from shore. To me, I think he thought that I was a turtle because my board is yellow, and with my hands paddling in the water, it makes me more look like a turtle. So I think he thought that I was a turtle, and he came for me.
It's severe. This is the top part of the jaw. He was lying on the surfboard. The bottom jaw got the bottom of the board. So from here to here is the corner of the mouth, so it came onto the back of the leg this way. It never got the back of the knee, but it got into the ligaments and some of the muscle.
David Silver was lucky. Other surfers had died in recent years from tiger shark attacks. He was badly hurt, but able to paddle his board safely to the shore. It's commonly believed in Hawaii that turtles are the preferred prey of tiger sharks, and that surfers paddling their boards look too much like turtles for safety. Green turtles are listed as a threatened species, since overfishing depleted their numbers and their nesting beaches were destroyed by tourism. For years, it was rare for a scuba diver or a snorkeler to see one in the wild. There are nowhere near as many turtles as surfers, but after years of protection, their population has recovered considerably. The increase in the turtle population has coincided with a rise in the number of shark attacks on people. Can there be a connection? Marine biologists keep a check on the turtle population. Although it is rising, it's still at risk and far below the numbers that were once here. The scientists catch the turtles by hand to study their progress. They're still not common, but they're surprisingly unwary over the sandy bottom a mile off Honolulu. George Ballas is a research biologist with the National Marine Fisheries Service in Honolulu. He's not convinced of the link between turtles and sharks.
Our research program started in 1972, 22 years ago. We have specifically gone to places in Hawaii that are the best sites for turtles. And in all those years of diving, I have never once encountered or even seen a tiger shark. One would think that if I'm exposing myself to higher risk being with the turtles, that I would have at least seen one, and such has not been the case. I think anybody that's in the ocean should have a healthy fear of sharks, but to think that they look like a turtle, I think is no basis for it whatsoever. Any object in the water at or near the surface could be liable to be snapped at by a shark. You don't have to look like a turtle in order to be eaten by a predator.
The first confirmed killing of a person by a shark in Hawaiian waters for 3 decades took place in 1991, and there have been others since. There was a public outcry, much of it from the tourist industry. The state of Hawaii set up the Shark Task Force to work out a management plan for shark attacks. At that time, little was known about tiger shark movements. The Shark Task Force had to make an immediate decision as to the best way to protect people, but they were aware that further research was needed.
Well, as soon as people started, there were shark attacks that were happening and a few people were killed by sharks, there's a huge public outcry to do something about this situation.
The removal of a couple of tiger sharks from an area after an attack is going to have a very minimal effect on the ecosystem.
Because we were making a decision, if we're going to do any fishing, we're going to try and do it to make sure that we got the fish that actually was the cause of the attack. Otherwise, I don't think as biologists we just go out and randomly kill sharks to appease public opinion. It was our best guess that if we went within 24 hours, we might catch the shark that did it. We also know we need a lot more research to know about the biology of these animals to know what are the chances of actually catching that animal within 24 hours. Will it be there or won't it?
To answer the questions raised by the task force, the Hawaiian State Legislature funded a study of tiger sharks. The principal investigator is Dr. Kim Holland, a scientist with the Hawaiian Institute of Marine Biology. He follows their movements around Oahu's densely populated coastline.
We don't know if the same fish come back to the same area day after day. We don't know if they have a home range that they patrol on a daily basis or a weekly basis. We don't know what the size of that home range is, if there is one. We don't know if, in fact, there's just a continual stream of new sharks coming past any given point on the shoreline. And until you know those kinds of things about their movement patterns, any control mechanisms or any control programs you might want to put in place won't have any scientific direction to them.
After each attack, the state of Hawaii caught and killed tiger sharks, 11 in all. Private fishermen thought this wasn't enough. They killed 44 in a single year.
Every time there's an attack, the state takes out 1 or 2 sharks and they call it quits. So I want to just keep a consistent basis of bringing out sharks. If I can make a few bucks on it. Okay. If fishing's slow, get sharks, why not? If I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? Okay, the state doesn't want to do it on a regular basis. They don't want to pay anybody, they don't want to take any contracts out, so I'll just do it on my own.
Killing a shark, any shark, might make the surfers and the travel agents feel that something was being done. But Kim Holland points out that not enough is known about tiger sharks and their habits. In his study, a female tiger shark hooked on a floating line is held on her back, a position in which she is helpless. An incision in her belly will contain a small radio transmitter which will give away her position after she's released.
0036.
Before she can be set free, someone has to take the hook out of her mouth.
One of the other things we're finding along those lines is that these sharks have no qualms about going offshore into deep blue water. One of the preconceptions was that these animals were coastal. This isn't the case at all.
Holland's study is the first to explore the movements of tiger sharks, which have been a mystery until now. They drop an underwater antenna to listen for the signals from the radio. It has a range of 1.5 kilometers. The ship will stay on the trail for as long as their stamina and their fuel hold out, usually for about 48 hours. On one trip, they found themselves 60 kilometers offshore in this time.
Well, as often is the case, when you finally get a chance to see an animal or observe an animal in its own environment, you get surprises, things you didn't anticipate.
Common folklore holds that tiger sharks patrol a small coastal area, a shark's personal territory. Instead, the researchers are finding tiger sharks travel great distances from island to island and plunge as deep as 300 meters, the deepest recorded for tiger sharks.
We had no idea that these fish had this ability to go so deep so easily and without apparently any restrictions on their movement patterns. So again, these are the kind of things that you can't find out without observing the animal in its own environment, and this is the first chance that we've had to do that with tiger sharks.
Kim Holland's findings suggest that it's probably pointless to try to cull rogue sharks after attacks. The fish responsible will be long gone, and any shark killed will be replaced by another coming in from elsewhere. It seems as though a single hunting shark can cover a huge area. It might return to the same place to feed again, but only after traveling an enormous distance. The same sharks that hunt around Oahu might travel 800 kilometers to a group of sandy atolls known as the northwestern islands of Hawaii. The marine life here is less disturbed and therefore much richer than that of the main islands. Large predatory fish called ulua are still abundant in this wildlife reserve. Elsewhere, they're heavily overfished because they're very good to eat. The northwestern islands are the home of the Hawaiian monk seal, an endangered species that has become rare in the main islands. There are about 1,400 of them here, their only breeding place. The monk seal is part of the regular diet of the tiger shark. Some of them here have bite scars and missing flippers, mementos of a lapse in alertness. The atoll's white sandy beaches are where the monk seals breed. Males come here to seek receptive females during the season, finding on the bright coral sand a haven beyond the reach of the patrolling sharks. This female is not yet in breeding condition. She rebuffs the male's advances, sending him on his way to look for a mate who will accept him. This puts him back in the water among the sharks. But tiger sharks are not as selective in their choice of prey as great whites. They will hunt anything that looks edible. At this time of year, black-footed albatross chicks are learning to fly. This, their first time in the water, is a bewildering experience. All around them, dark shadows move beneath the surface. Individual sharks know of this seasonal abundance of prey. Some of them have been here for a week, waiting for the first chicks to reach the water. These are the first fledglings to venture from their nests. The sharks are hungry, but they must maneuver in water only a meter or so deep. For the first few days, the sharks find it difficult to come to grips with their prey. They're out of practice. They haven't tried to catch albatross chicks since this time last year, and it takes time to get back into the knack of it. The chick fights back, pecking at its tormentor, instinctively aiming for the shark's most vulnerable spot, its eyes. During the first few days of fledging, many chicks escape in time to learn to fly. When the wind slackens at noon, the chicks stop trying to fly and return to the island. Surrounded by shallow water rich in fish, the islands are ideal for seabirds. More than 14 million seabirds of 15 different species come here to nest. There's hardly room for them all. They cover every inch of ground and even the smallest shrubs. There are boobies with blue bills and the black tropical terns known as noddies. Black and white sooty terns are the most numerous, making up almost 3/4 of the bird population. Some of the smallest populations are of the largest birds. The Laysan albatross, 1 meter tall, has a wingspan of 2 meters. Its chicks grow rapidly in size and weight on a rich diet of regurgitated fish. By mid-June, they will be fed less and less often, with smaller amounts, and finally with nothing. Soon, their parents will leave the island, and the chicks will wait for food in vain. Without food, the chicks slim down to their flying weight and take every chance to exercise their flying muscles. Each morning, when the wind gets up, they face into it and flap their wings. The parents return to feed them one more time, and then prepare to leave, not to return for another year. The chicks make their way to the open beach, where the breeze is strongest. Once on the wing, they might not return for 3 years, and they will not mate until they're 8 years old, if they survive that long. Now they must become airborne and survive the sea. On a calm day, this is very difficult and dangerous. The sharks have had time to learn since their first encounters with albatross chicks a few days ago. They know now that they must reach high out of the water to be sure of engulfing the bird, and they must strike fast before the prey escapes. If it misses a chick on the first strike, the shark turns and follows it upwind. Eventually, the young mussels tire and the bird drifts down to the water again. About 1 in 10 albatross chicks fall victim to sharks each year. More of them die of starvation or get drowned in the surf. Sharks and birds have coexisted here for millennia, without the bird population suffering from this level of predation. People have an option that is not open to albatross chicks. They can keep out of the shark's way and allow the magnificent predators their own rightful place as apex predators in the ocean. Native Hawaiians, with many generations' experience of tiger sharks, say that it's folly to play in the surf around sunrise or sunset. It's said that is the time when sharks come to feed in shallow water. Kim Holland's work does not bear this out. He thinks that they're there all the time, but the odds against being attacked are 1,000,000 to 1. One thing to bear in mind is that if these powerful, adaptable hunters wanted to eat people, they would, and nothing would stop them. It wouldn't be 60 attacks in 50 years, but 1 a minute. If sharks really were man-hunters, surfing would never have been invented. As it is, they're only occupying their rightful place at the top of the marine food chain. If they sometimes make a mistake, it behoves us to keep out of their way.